Today in our 2016 Jeep Wrangler, we're going to take a look at and also show you how to install the Roadmaster Diode wiring kit for towed vehicles with the 7-wire to 6-wire Flexo-Coil kit. Part number is RM-15267. Now this wiring kit is going to be the perfect solution for towed vehicles. This is going to take a working 7-pole plug and we're going to transfer that right back as if our Jeep were a trailer. So anytime the blinkers, brakes, or running lights come on in our RV, that's going to be transferred back and we'll see it on the lights in our Jeep. Now let's test our lighting system out. You'll want to hook it up to either a tester or your motorhome. Start by turning on our running lights. Then we do our left blinker, our right blinker. Now the diodes are going to play an important role in our towed vehicle wiring because these prevent backfeeding. We've got two inputs. We've got, say here, we've got the turn signal coming in from the motorhome. We've got the turn signal coming in from the Jeep itself. Now when that signal comes in, it's allowed to pass through to our light. And when this signal comes in, it's allowed to pass through to our light. The diodes prevent that circuit, or prevent that current from running back up into the Jeep's wiring if it's coming from the motorhome, or if it's coming from the Jeep side, it prevents it from going back up to the motorhome. So we're not going to have any backfeed, keeping both of our vehicles protected. Now to begin our installation, we're going to start running our 4-pole wiring. Now ultimately we want this to end up just above our base plate. We'll run it up behind the fascia, but this is about 30 foot long, so it's a good idea to run a portion of it. So we'll come just below the driver's door here. There's this forward body mount. And I'm going to run my wiring right up along the frame. Bring some of that over. We're going to continue running that forward, following along the frame rail, just to avoid any sharp objects, any significant sources of heat, or anything else that might cause damage to your wiring. Now typically when using this type of wiring harness, it's because you're going to be hauling it behind a coach or something like that. That's typically also going to entail a braking system, so check the instructions on your braking system. A lot of times they need to tap into these 4 wires, or at least 1 or 2 of them. So wherever you have access, like for my braking system, I'm going to bring my wiring right out of this grommet. That'll give me great access, and I'm just leaving a little bit of extra here so I can make those connections. Now we need to separate our white wire here. This just needs to run to a ground. And to do that, you'll just pull it away from the other wires. There's just a small piece of plastic that holds them together. So we've got a nice piece of plate steel right there we can use to give us a good ground. Now we can strip that white wire back. And to that we'll add the provided ring terminal. Crimp that down on there. Now we'll use the provided self-tapping screw and a 5/16 inch either socket or bit driver. And we'll use that screw to secure our ring terminal. Now our 3 remaining wires, the yellow, green, and brown, I just like to follow along right with that fuel filler neck. It's going to be right here. It should bring us out right back here where we need it. And then we want to strip away that green wire away from the other 2. Separate it, and then pull. Now our yellow and brown wire, we're going to stick it right up underneath the foam pad. Notice a pretty big opening there. We just want to slide it up in, push as much of it up there in there as we can. We'll be able to find it when we head up top. Now to gain access to that wiring, we're going to remove the 2 Phillips screws located closest to the middle here. We can slide our light housings in just a little bit and pull them straight out. If we look below the loom, that's where that's going to come out. On the back side you can see a couple different plugs and wiring. We want to focus on the plug that's up here on the top. You can see we've got a few wires that run into it. We're going to determine which of those wires controls which signal. it's a good idea to take some of this wire loom off of here, just to give you a better look at the wires. Just be careful as you do this. You don't actually want to cut the wiring, you just want to cut the loom. Now you'll go over to the passenger side. You want to remove that housing and the wire loom on that side as well. Alright, now we'll figure out what wire controls which operation. We'll start by finding our running light signal. So we'll have the running lights in the Jeep turned on. And we'll check each of our wires to determine which one has signal. Alright, now turn those off and back on. Perfect. So it looks like the white with the orange stripe is going to be for the running light signal. Now we'll have the running lights turned off. And we'll have the brakes pushed. Now we'll check for that signal. Now off and back on. Alright, so our brake's going to come through the green and white wire there. Let's do the same thing on the passenger side. We'll have the running lights turned on. And off and back on. So that's going to be the white wire. It's got a little purple stripe on it. And then we'll have the running lights off and turn the brake lights on. And off and back on. Alright. So the white and yellow will be the one we'll use on the passenger side for the turn signal and brake. At that point we'll just press in on the tab right there. That'll allow us to separate our plug, and we'll get our diodes put in place on both sides. Now here on the driver's side we'll start by putting our running light diode in. That's the orange and white wire. We're going to snip our factory wire. We'll strip both sides of that back. And we want to add on one of the blue female spade connectors. Slide that over the stripped wire and crimp it down. It's going to be on each side. Look just like this. You always want to give a good pull on them after you crimp them, just to ensure that they've got a good tight fit there and they're not going to come out. We can do the exact same thing for our green and white wire. Now the yellow wire, we're going to trim that off so it's about the same length as our green and white wire there. And we'll add a blue female connector to it. Now the brown wire is for our tail light signal. We need to do something a little bit different with this. We're going to cut it. Then we're going to combine both of these into one yellow spade connector. So it stripped both sides back. This allows us to split our running light signal, and the extra wire we have here will go over to the passenger side. Since we only have one signal coming from the motorhome, if we only hooked it up here, only the driver's side taillight would come on. But by adding this, we can run that additional length to the other side and get the signal we need. Now we'll get our diodes put in place. You can see we've got two inputs and a single output. We'll start with the turn signal, so that'll get the green and white wire and the yellow wire. And then on the other side we just need to connect our green and white wire. Just like that. Now we'll do the same thing for our tail lights, this time using the orange and white wire and our brown wire that we doubled up. You can see the double-sided tape there. We're not really going to stick these to anything inside of there. We're just going to zip tie them off to the wire loom, so we'll stick the two of these together. Now the brown wire that we doubled up, we're just going to run that right back down through the hole we brought our wiring into. Pull that slack out. Now once I have all of my connections made, I like to use some Loctite. This is part number LT37467. And I'm going to fill in the back side of those connectors there, just to prevent any moisture from getting in there There's a lot of dust and stuff like that when we pull this off, so it spends some time off-road. If we can get the back of those filled, and if we can also seal around that connector on top of the diode, we won't have to worry about any corrosion issues. Let's get our plugs back in our light. And we can put that right back in place. Now we're going to take the green wire and the brown wire that we extended, and we're going to take those over to the passenger side. I usually like to run right along the back side of the bumper here. Use zip ties to keep everything nice and secure. Now on each side there are little brackets. We've got one right here. The other one's going to be on the other side of the hitch. I like to run my wiring behind those, and that helps give us some good support. Now I'm going to use a drill bit. You can pick whatever size you want to use. Just want to make sure it's large enough for the two wires to pass up through it. We're going to go right through the bottom of this panel. Of course, check behind it to make sure there's no electronics there or anything you might be drilling into. Once we get through there, you can also see that white stuff. There's some foam up above it. We're going to drill through that foam and kind of clear out an area for your wires to pass. We'll feed our wires right up through there. Once we're done making our connections, we can fill that in with silicone to reseal it. We'll draw our wires out just like we did on the other side. There's a little piece of steel right here. You can see we can use that to zip tie our wires off. There's a hole in it. We'll just back just a little further. Zip tie our wires off there. We won't have to worry about them ever hanging down below. Now remember, for the tail light circuit on this side, we're using the purple and white wire. We'll snip it. The turn signal and brake, we're going to use the white wire with the yellow stripe. And get these trimmed off, leaving a little bit of extra there. And we'll strip all 6 of those back, and each one of those will get a blue spade connector. The only yellow one we use is on the driver's side. All right, now remember, we're using the brown wire for our running light signal. That's the purple and white, so those will get plugged into the same diode. The green is for our right turn signal, and that one needs to be plugged in with the white and yellow wire. And we'll just repeat the same process here we did for the other side, and getting these stuck together and siliconed up. Now we're ready to get our 6-pole plug on the front of the vehicle. This allows us to plug in our Flexo-Coil. It's going to make the connection between the RV plug in here, and that'll send all the signals through our 4-pole wire to the back of the vehicle. You'll also notice I've got an additional black wire here. This is for use with the braking system, just to give you an idea what that's for. We're going to separate our wires out here, just kind of pull them apart like we did in the back. You can see I've used a little bit of electrical tape there just to kind of come down. It's going to hide those wires a little bit better for us. Just going to trim these off all even so we can get it through our boot. The boot's on the back side of the plug. You can just pull that off. Place all of our wires through, then we can start stripping those back. We're going to strip back and twist all 4 or 5 wires if you needed it for your application. Now on the back side of our plug, you see this is going to be the top. If we look at the back side, we've got a connection point here for TM, that's trailer marker. GD is white for ground. LT is for the left turn signals, that's going to be the yellow wire. And RT is going to be for the right turn signal, that's going to be for the green wire. We are also going to be using the S. The S is what we're going to call our signal wire. That's our black wire. And that's for a monitor light that's going to be installed in the coach. Again, your application may or may not have that. You just want to use a Phillips screwdriver and back those set screws out. We'll place each of the wires into the hole. And then as you tighten that down, that gets a good bite on them. Alright, so starting there at the top, again we've got our trailer marker, which is brown. Next one going counterclockwise is white. Next one's going to be left turn or yellow. Have a right turn, which is green. And then our signal wire there. Let me use a little more tape just to, again, kind of disguise that wiring so it's just one color. Then we'll just bring that cover over the back side like that and get it attached and tested. Now, one tip that we like to do here is once we've tested this and we know that it's working properly, we're going to squeeze silicone in between all of these connection points. We're going to bring our boot down over, and then we're going to fill in all the way around there. It's just going to make sure water and moisture doesn't get in there causing corrosion. And to make sure everything works, you just want to plug this into the back of your RV or any 7-pole vehicle. Just make sure all the lights are working. One thing you do want to keep in mind is that you will need to install a brake light relay. Now we're going to use the wiring mount arms here that were attached to our base plate. If your base plate doesn't have it, you can also use part number 18140, which would be a short bracket. Now the other part of our system is going to be our Flexo-Coil. This creates the connection behind the RV to the front of the Jeep. It takes a 7-pole. Most of your RVs are going to have a standard 7-pole, and as long as you have one that's working, we can plug that in there. The 6-pole goes in the front. That's going to give us all of our connections there for our lights to make sure they're going to work properly. We just want to place this in, making sure that this tab goes behind the one down their cover. Same thing on the Jeep side. You can see our covers got that little catch. We want that to sit right behind that metal lip. That's going to complete our installation of the Roadmaster towed vehicle wiring kit with the 7-wire to 6-wire Flexo-Coil. Part number RM-15267 on our 2014 Jeep Wrangler.
Thanks for watching. Click the link in our description below to shop, learn more, or visit us at Etrailer.com. And leave us a comment if you have any questions.